I'm John Miglash for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Thank you for joining me for my nemoa special. I was supposed to be in Boston. We were supposed to have the great nemoa show, which I always enjoy, and yet no dice, nothing going. United credited me, the hotel credited me, nemoa credited me for the next show, so I came out pretty well. I didn't get back my parking payment, but, we'll live. So, what I want to do is I want to take you back to some times of chaos that we've been through. And I want you to think about what you're going to do next, because that's the key right now to survival. There's some very optimistic news coming out. Tesla ordered their workers back. Well, they never even stopped. They ordered them to come in and work. And part of it is because Elon Musk was alerted to a treatment for COVID-19. A refereed journal article came out last night from France saying that there was a 100% effective viral treatment for COVID-19. You say, well, I thought viruses were not really treatable. Well, it turns out hepatitis C has been conquered by certain viral treatments. And it turns out also that there's a 50-year-old drug that's readily available worldwide right now on the shelf that can be used for treatment. You say, well, why doesn't Italy use it? Well, Italy was listening to the World Health Organization instead of some alternatives, okay? And if you listen to the press conference just minutes ago, the state of New York is going to be implementing testing with that it's actually an anti-malarial drug. So there's some great news coming. I think we're going to keep hearing great news, more and more and more great news. And if you've ever tried to do nonlinear extrapolation or projections, it's basically impossible. I gave up years ago because even though I had models that could be manipulated, the problem is that if you're off a sliver, it's like whoosh, all of a sudden it goes exponential. There's a really great modeling book called Limits to Growth, and it was put out in the 70s. And what it explained, it showed that how do I put this? Limits to growth. You really should find it. There's some things out there on YouTube and some other places. But what they did was they modeled population growth and pollution growth and food production and oil production. And they showed that no matter what you did to the variables, no matter what you did, humanity would collapse by the year 2000. Now, some of you watching this might not have even been born by the year 2000. But this is the kind of challenge we have with modeling and with exponential nonlinear projections. It's really hard. And of course, we know that they were completely wrong. Food production is dramatically increased. Pollution controls have actually improved as the economies have expanded in the world. The air is cleaner now than ever. World poverty was cut in half in the first 20 years of the 21st century. And by almost any definition. I think it was people living on less than $1 a day. But you can look at people living on less than $10 a day. Whatever metric, it's been cut in half. So there's great things on the horizon. But nevertheless, we have to wade through this time of chaos. So that said, let's dig in. Let's embrace the challenge. May you live in chaotic times. Here we go. My. Got to hit the right buttons. What I'm going to talk about today is growth and profit. You say, that's insane. Look at what the markets are doing. You know what? Somebody's going to grow. Somebody's going to profit. Somebody always does. And it's possible in times of chaos. What does the CEO want right now? Well, they always want return on investment, scalable, profitable growth, and strategic insights. And if you're a CEO today, I talked to a couple this week, and they're just, battening down the hatches, buckling up, saying, "Whoa, it's terrible." And what was interesting was one of them in particular, I said, we've worked with this industry, your industry before, and the last time I worked with one, it was like we just hope for a recession because it's a little bit of an agricultural product. And people, travel less, they hang around home more, they do things around the house. Home improvements is one of those areas that does better in recession because people hang on to their homes instead of selling them. It's not go-go times. And there are industries, you may be in them, but there's also industries that are devastated. But there's always an opportunity. Oh man, I was talking with a home inspector a few years ago, and he said it was a rough time, and he said I don't know whether to shut down my business or not. And I said, okay, well, why would you? Well, he said home inspection goes down about 30% in the winter around here. I said, okay. And he said, and a lot of home inspectors go south for the winter. Just take the time off. And he said, I could do that. But I really could use the money. And, I said, okay. Well, what about if we looked at, say this is the market of all home inspection. And let's say, it's contracted a third. Okay. What percentage of that third would your business represent? And then he said, oh, it's a speck, a little tiny bit. I said, so even though the overall has reduced, what are the chances you could find more business inside that smaller pie, especially if everybody else is going, oh, well, there's no way to win, and they go home or they go down to Florida. He said, oh, I never thought of it that way. There's probably a really good chance. So I said, what would you do to get more business? He said, well, I'd go out and talk to the banks, I'd talk to the realtors, and I'd see what was going on. I said, why don't you do better? Why don't you come in with a bag of donuts or, a tray of donuts or something, and just walk in with the donuts and say, hey, I'm just here to say hi, and I'm still in business, and I'd love to hear from you if you need some inspection done. Well, he took my advice. Went and got some donuts, went around and called on some of the banks and some of the realtors that he usually would talk to but hadn't been. And I called him up a couple of weeks later, and he said, well, not only was January my best January ever, it was my best month ever. So it's, strategic insights are key, and it sometimes helps to talk to an old guy who's got some good stories, and you start thinking about it. Now, what are you afraid of right now? Right now. I mean, I gave a talk like this back in August, and, we were, AI is coming, everybody's going to be obsolete, the digital transformation and all this fluff. And, the world has changed, right? People are going to want grounded stuff, and they may even want catalogs again. And if you run out of toilet paper, which has only been around about 100 years, people used to use the Sears catalog. So you might want to switch to uncoated stock so people have a second use and they can read it while they're thinking. And you have them all to yourself. Okay, the other thing is, it's just there's been a lot of angst at the Nemoa coffee CEO breakfast that are we getting good people? Because these kids are coming out of college and they've never even heard of direct mail. Just nothing. They've had no courses. They don't think it is relevant. It doesn't even make any sense. I was really encouraged yesterday or day before yesterday that we had 2 young people that said, we have print backgrounds. We were trained in print and we love print. and we've done circulation, and we're really excited about what you're doing. That was so great to hear. There are great people out here, and I'll tell you what, the more rigorous your testing, the more rigorous your direct marketing skills, the less the world cares about anything else. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so there's two paths of the future. A lot of you are thinking, the nemoa crowd, maybe I need to go all digital. I'm going to just ditch my catalog, which is expensive, and I'm going to just do digital transformation. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. Or I'm going to just keep mailing the way I always have, and I'll just pray and hope that it works. Well, first let's talk about digital challenges. I love this graph. It was from a few years ago where only 30% of marketers measured sales impact of content marketing, but 57%, almost double, said they believed it increased sales. That's kind of the state of the world. You know, omni-channel marketing is such a nightmare, such a nut house, that we don't even know. Our attribution is a mess, and everybody I talk to agrees with that. They won't tell anybody, but that's what's really going on. It's a complete disaster. So, what else? Digital ad fraud. Originally there was a Czech study. They couldn't believe it. They said it was 16 billion in 2017. Well, 2018, another study's come out and said 35 billion, 42 billion in 2019, and 100 billion by 2023. There was an ex-Procter & Gamble, I think, big agency guy. I had him on the previous slideshow saying that you don't even realize your ads might not even be viewable. You might be getting charged for stuff that you can't track because it's so difficult to figure it out. Where is it being shown? You drop it on the Google Ad Network, you don't know. You can't track it all down. You're just taking everybody's word for it. And organized crime, their number 2 business is ad fraud because they can inflate the clicks, and the AI driving the click farms is better than the AI trying to catch it. Procter & Gamble slashed its digital ad spend, and not only did nothing bad happen, the sales actually went up. See, digital is like playing the penny slots. Somebody wrote me and said they liked this illustration. It's like playing the penny slots. My wife got $1 from one of our daughters when we went to Vegas, and she said, I was told I have to gamble. I'm gonna try gambling with my dollar. And she said, I'm gonna put it in one of those penny slot machines, and so I'm gonna get to play at least 100 tries. I said, so you just want to lose it, right? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, remember, I'm a statistician by trade, at least. And the way slot machines work is if you play them long enough, you're gonna regress to the settings on the machine. It's like today on my live stream, I talked about the ESPN analytics department ran a single simulation on the March Madness. And the reason they did it is because if they ran it long enough, if they ran 1,000 versions of the simulation, then the number 1 favorite team would always win, right? In 1,000 tries. It's like if you watch the movie Miracle, Herbie Brooks says, if we played the Russians 10 times, they'd probably win 9 of them. But we're only playing them once. And tonight's your night, right? And that's the fun of March Madness. So they ran a simulation on March Madness, and I thought, oh well, there's nothing else to watch. I'll just page down through this thing, and I highlighted Wisconsin, which is, my alma mater, and I see, well, Wisconsin wins the first one, wins the second, wins the third. Yeah, they're in the Sweet 16, they're in the Elite 8, Final Four, which they've done quite a few times actually in the last 20 years. They've been playing pretty well. And they keep saying the defense at Wisconsin, they just shut people down, which is true. They won their last 8 games. I don't know how they did it because I watch other teams and they're just consummate. They look so athletic, and Wisconsin looks like a bunch of Wisconsin farm boys. Really, I mean, kind of. I'm not saying they're not athletic, and they seem to be able to run forever, but they just they don't look like an elite team, and yet they beat one after another. So anyway, they run the simulation, and guess what? Wisconsin wins the simulated March Madness national title. Okay, so I told my wife, if you want to be lucky, if you want a shot at luck, go to the dollar machine. Get one with a lever on it, because at least you get to pull the lever. Put it in there, see what happens. If you lose it, you lose it. If you win, you win. But you can get lucky on one pull, but you can't get lucky on 100 pulls. So she listened, and she did it. And what do you know? She won $9, and boy, was she excited. Out came a coupon for 10. And so that's the trouble with digital. You're playing too many pulls. And if fraud is as big as they say, then it's really hard to tell what's going on. So maybe artificial intelligence is the salvation. 87%, according to Gartner, 87% of AI projects never even get to ROI. They never even get to testing payback, much less making any money. Why? Well, one reason is the more data you have, the more spurious correlations you get. So this one in particular is deaths caused by X-ray contrast media correlates with bicyclists killed in collisions with 2- or 3-wheeled motor vehicles. And look at how beautiful this is. This is over like 9 years. Not this year, not too much, but oh boy, look at that one. Woohoo! Look at that. I think it even says that it's an 88% correlation. And if you have enough big data, you're going to correlate almost everything to everything. That's why back tests are so catastrophically awful. And maybe you'd say that's why March Madness simulations are catastrophically awful if you're not a fan of Wisconsin. I thought it was great. But the fact is, simulations are very, very difficult, as we said. They're very difficult to manage. They're difficult to figure out what's going on. You really want something that's understandable. Now, Gartner said risk and confusion. They said, well, as these AI projects go on, the costs keep going up, so risk expands. But also, we don't really know what a lot of these AI devices are doing. A lot of this stuff that you're looking at, trying out to give you insights, isn't designed to give you insights. It's designed to give you lift. Just lift. Most neural nets, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know why they picked this customer, not that customer. It has its reasons, but you don't know what they are. So watch out. It's easy to multiply confusion the more complex your tool. Now, we'll talk a little later about why our tool has been proven over 25 years. So at least if there's something crazy going on, we know it's you. Okay? Now I think the reason that so few AI projects get to ROI is, first of all, we don't have really good attribution in marketing. And it's not, it's sort of baked in. I mean, you think about it. Think about the last purchase you made. I'm trying to remember what the last purchase I made. Well, we went to the grocery store and we got licorice. We wanted to make sure we got some licorice. Then we read the labels on licorice. It's just corn syrup and wheat flour and starch and stuff. I thought there was something good about licorice. I thought it was somehow medicinal. But anyway, why do we buy licorice? I don't know. It just came into my head. Now, maybe I saw an ad for licorice. I don't remember. So we have this problem as humans that things are bouncing around in our heads, and we don't even know how they got in there. And some advertising is geared to planting ideas in your head. So you unconsciously go to the grocery store and pick up this or pick up that. Well, maybe those days are over. We don't even know. But the trouble is, if I don't know why I bought what I bought, then I couldn't even tell you if you asked me. And you don't really ask me, and you couldn't probably, because you might as well ask me something relevant, like, what are you going to buy next? Or are you satisfied? Or, something important, don't bother with, do you remember why you bought this? I bought gas because my car was low. Why'd you go to that gas station? I was driving by, right? And another problem is I can't remember the last digital ad I watched or even was on the side panel. And I know I just was on a few digital sites that have ads on them. So the engagement is so low that, sorry, I don't even remember the ads. I don't remember the ads, and I don't remember what they did to me. Now, that doesn't mean it's not working. It just means it's really hard to tell what's working. On the back end, it's even harder than for the consumer. If they wanted to tell you, they can't. So, machine learning has challenges. The computer sees patterns, which can be spurious correlations. You think that big data is better, but literally garbage in, garbage out. And the real challenge, this one is, I'll highlight this if I can. The real challenge is that a labeled data set is required. Whenever I do this stuff, then it pops out of here and changes all the format. But I'm not going to worry about it. Labeled data set is required. You say, what the heck is that? Well, a labeled data set, you remember when Jeopardy, when IBM tried to teach Watson to play Jeopardy, they had over 120,000 clues. And so they knew, here's the clue, here's the question. I mean, technically it's not question answer, it's clue question. Sort of like answer question. But they had 120,000 sets of those. And so they were able to test their algorithms against the real world. Those clues had been labeled by the authors of the clues. Now, they tried to apply that to oncology, to MRI scans, and say, okay, tell us which scans have cancer and which don't. Problem is, they didn't have enough it wasn't a big enough data set. University of Texas at Austin, IBM quoted them 3 million, and after a couple of years, it was 63 million, and they sued IBM because it still didn't work. And I talked with an oncologist just this week about why it doesn't work, and he says, there's a lot of factors. It's hard to know, and it may even get back to the sex check chicken paradox, which is that little chicks are almost indistinguishable even under a microscope, male and female. But you want to tell the roosters from the chicks, because if you're raising chickens, you want chickens, and if you're raising roosters, you want roosters. And so it turns out some people can tell the difference. The trouble is they can't tell you how they tell the difference. If you want to become a chicken gender checker, you go to somebody who knows how to check chicken genders, and you pick the chick, and then they slap your hand if you're wrong. And after a while, you get better and better and better, and you get slapped less, and you still can't tell why you do it. So there's a lot of challenges going on with this stuff, right? Well, let's talk about another labeled data set you can understand, self-driving CAPTCHA. You've probably seen things like that. It says, are you human? And then it brings up this thing. Check all the squares of traffic lights. Bing, 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 bing. Okay, so I see them all. Why are they doing that? You think that's to verify that you're human? No, that's not what it's about. They're trying to build a labeled data set. They're trying to get you as a human to label this data set. Why? Because, well, for one thing, this looks like a traffic light. It's got a green light, green light, green light. See those? These don't look like traffic lights. Did you notice that? They look like sort of vertical rectangles, black vertical rectangles. But as a human, you know exactly what that is. See that? And let's say you were pulled up right behind this truck, really close. And you're a self-driving car. For some reason, the self-driving car decides to tailgate a little, or maybe it's a little bigger truck. And you can't see these stoplights, or this one, let's just say. Or maybe there is only one. Down south, they used to just hang a cable, and there'd be one across the intersection. But you see these from way back, because they're higher and they're off to the side a little bit. It would be really helpful for that self-driving car to know that these are traffic lights, even though they don't look like them. because of that arm, because of a wire hanging across, etc. So what you're doing as a human is you're contributing to Tesla and others having a labeled data set. And that part is largely missing in marketing. Customers buy or customers don't buy. They don't tell you why. You don't know why. In fact, you don't know if they saw your ad. You don't know if they didn't. So you don't know who saw it, and you don't know its impact. And those are the reasons that 87% of AI projects fail. Whoa, this is worse than you expected, eh? This is way worse. Really, really stuck. We're stuck. I gotta say, we're a little bit stuck here. What are we gonna do? Let's go on. What about mail? I stayed up in the middle of the night. I'd wake up and think, well, how is it that I've been able to do machine learning and that sort of thing for all these years, and no one else seems to be able to? Why is that even possible? Right? It was like it just confounded me. Because if it's that hard, 87% fail, why am I, not only am I getting it to work and getting to ROI, but we're actually getting insights and making money for 25 years. Up total mystery. Well, it's not a total mystery anymore. We figured it out. First of all, engagement. I learned from the SAPI studies that your brain has 10 times more touch than vision processing. So that mailer, and I have a whole drawer full of mailers from companies like LinkedIn. I don't know if you can see LinkedIn. Here's PayPal. I have all kinds of them that are from what you'd consider Wayfair, what you'd consider totally email or digital companies. And yet, they're mailing. Why? Well, people read best on paper. It's navigable. It does it easier to map in your head. It takes less energy to read on paper than it does on digital, where it's all moving around. And most websites are just horrible. Anyway, you can get to that study. Mail delivers. Millennials say they ignore ads, but they say also that they read their mail. Royal Mail study said 87% of people actually said that they were making an online purchase. In this case, it was mainly charitable contributions. They remembered the mail. They actually could link themselves back to it. So it's with 10 times more engagement just in your brain, like it or not, that's just the way we're wired. Attribution is possible. So mail delivers clear testing with clear offers. It lets the customer tell us what they want. So what we do is we send it out and we see what happens. And because there's so much higher engagement, we can actually map back to the variables that seem to matter. The neighborhood, the list, the offer. So mail actually is a foundation for machine learning. It connects with your brain and it guarantees engagement. It also guarantees maximum customer knowledge, because here's the key. Since we mail to the household and we ship to the household, we know who got it. We know it had to be looked at, or else it just piles up. You have to throw it out. And if you throw it out, we know that you looked at it. Okay, you may not have been interested, but you did have to look at it. We don't know whether you were watching on ESPN or, on, I don't know, whatever you watch, YouTube ads going by. We don't know if you were really watching. You might have been getting coffee or on your favorite TV show. But we do know you had to interact with that mailing piece. And because we know that you saw it, and you either bought or you didn't, we have a labeled data set by humans. We know they saw it, and we know who bought. So we know who didn't buy, and we can look at the factors. So as crazy as it sounds, which I know it's crazy, if you're interested in strategic insights, which you should be in times of chaos, right now you should be very interested in this. If you're interested, It's your mailings that give you the best foundation for machine learning. Far, far better than digital. All the digital people think that that's the key. We're going to go digital so we can track, but third-party cookies are turned off and blocked. And where you buy the ads are a disaster. In the 80s, only 50% of households did remote buying. Only 50% basically had credit cards. So we knew to only mail response files. Now everybody places remote orders. Everybody's doing PayPal or doing and paying for Netflix or paying on Amazon or whatever. All my kids are like, "Whoa, how come you're not transferring cash around, Dad?" Okay, here's my email. Send it to me on PayPal. Anyway, so 100% of households with any money do remote buying. The mailbox is less full. Readership is up. We have the golden age of mail. I've seen prospecting work at a level that I hadn't seen in 20, 30 years. Oh, that's a good guy to write me back. So, I've been fighting this battle for literally 25 years. I was the catalog guy back in the 90s, and all of a sudden the internet came along. And a bunch of clients said, "Well, we were going to hire you, but we decided to hire this other guy with 10 minutes of digital experience." But, 20% of your customers are still worth talking to and worth upping the engagement. So I would encourage you to launch an AI pilot lab. I would encourage you to up the ante in your engagement. If you're just a digital, you're going to nemoa to check this out, there's a real place for mail in machine learning. It can get you to machine learning far better and far faster than you could ever do it with digital because of the uncertainty baked into digital. And it's not just the tracking. It's partly the consumer himself or herself. Okay. I can tell you also that what you learn with the mail can be applied to email, Google Ad Network, Facebook, etc. There's fantastic ways to apply it. So, all of this said, let's talk about some case studies. Nordstrom's, back less than a year ago, said they decided to stop sending out mailers to their customer members. They have a buying club thing. And Eric Nordstrom got on there about 1st of May and said results were hurt by stopping our use of direct mail. Now, if they had a brain, they wouldn't have just stopped it all. They would have stopped it at 1 or 2 stores so that they still had good circulation, good cost per piece, and seen what happened. But instead, they shut it all down because they listened to some digital marketer. How about J. Jill? Same basic time. We plan some shift from direct mail to alternative media options, primarily digital. In hindsight, we moved too much too soon. Now, that's an interesting way of phrasing it. It wasn't that we were wrong. It wasn't that we should have kept mail in our catalog. That's how we grew to this point. It was that we just, we should have sent out a postcard or something. Send them something for those anachronistic boomers that read their mail. And Linda's not there anymore. I don't know where she went. And the interim president is no longer there. They're on another one. But when I went on the site to look for a catalog, just to look for an example, a picture of a catalog, say, would you like a catalog? I couldn't find one. I found one in some other, free catalog offer website that had just a collection of places you could write. I couldn't find a catalog request, and I couldn't find a picture of their catalog anymore. So good luck with that. Okay, let's talk about this one, Lovesac. We worked with Lovesac starting in 2014. Their growth up to 2014 was primarily through opening new stores, and they had quite a few stores. And this is public information. They've gone public since, and so they had to say all this stuff. But what we saw was a very dramatic increase in sales, right? And what happened was they had in about 2014 or 2013 they had started a catalog because a consultant had told them, you really ought to have a catalog. And they tried mailing it to customers and they tried mailing it to prospects. And I said, well, what were the results? And they said, we're not even gonna, we don't even, it don't bother looking at the results. We got so few orders from it that it's not even worth looking at. Okay, so we started from scratch. And about the same time, they hired Patrick, who was the new vice president of marketing. And Patrick came from a packaged goods company, and it was not a mail company. It was a big brand. You'd know the name, but anyway, Patrick said something. He asked me a really profound question. I learn a lot from good clients, and Patrick was one. He said, "Why would we mail a catalog to people who already know what we're about, what our product is about? They've already bought from us. When our main issue is just name recognition. People don't know what we have." And I said, "Well, we can figure that out. We can tell if it's got a good ROI or not." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, we can test that." "How would you do it?" He said. I said, "Well, what we do is we take the, 6-figure number of catalogs you're mailing, and we'll say, well, let's not mail some people. And we'll keep track of the people we don't mail, and we'll look downstream and see how they do in the next couple of months." Because we had all the orders coming in. And I said, "That's all we have to do." And he said, "Whoa, make it so. Let's do it." And when we did it, we found we had about a 300% return on investment. And I'm talking about EBITDA. I'm talking about after cost of mail, cost of goods, and cost of order processing. So if the catalog costs $1, which it didn't, but let's just say, that means you got about $10 of extra revenue per customer, and or $10 less per customer on the ones we didn't mail. So it's very, very testable. Now later, we noticed that there was a lot of business coming from next door neighbors. It's another benefit of mail. You get pass along. I don't pass along ads, digital ads, very much. I saw something really funny, I might share it on my live stream, but it's not like I sent it to my neighbors. But one of their markets is places that have difficult stairways and things, old urban buildings where you might know your neighbors and you might have trouble getting a couch up the stairs. So it seemed, we don't know, we didn't really, it's hard to say, but we think that people, after you mail them a few times, they've got a catalog, they know who you are, but they give them to their neighbor. Or, it says, or current resident. So, I checked with a couple of mail carriers and they didn't exactly admit to this, but they said, it wouldn't be unheard of that somebody takes a stack of catalogs and drops them in the lobby and doesn't bother to put them all in their appropriate mail slots. So, curious neighbors might pick one up. That might have worked too. We're not sure. But whatever happened, we had about a 900% return on investment, which again means for every dollar they spent, they got about $30 of sales. And I don't remember the margin. I'm just giving you a sort of a perspective on it. It's, I'm just saying, for example, you spend $1, you get about $30 in sales, and you get about $9 in profit. That's not unheard of. That's the kind of thing we've seen. And then what they did, and this is the really important part, we started testing offers. We started testing other mailings to the customers. We started testing traffic builders. And they worked so much, and we were so confident that we were making money with our mailings that we refined our message, and we also prospected, and we drove traffic with the prospecting. And somewhere along the way, they really found some effective postcard campaigns with LS Direct, with Brian over there, and they were already driving traffic to the websites with TV commercials. And so they were able to take what we learned from careful split testing in the mail laboratory, we'll call it, apply it to the TV ads, mail people who visited the website, and that is part of how they got this tremendous growth. And I checked with Brian again, and he said it keeps on going. I don't know about this week because it's been a tough week. But the point is that mail was a key driver of the information stack that the marketing team had to work with. And in some of the public videos, Sean said, the marketing department is really good at figuring out what's working. And he didn't mention me, but I think we did teach them a little bit about the power of direct marketing and how to analyze. So it applied. Now, Musician's Friend, there's another one. Musician's Friend had 11 head-to-head tests, 6 different modeling companies, 6 years. Over 6 years, we had every test was at least 500,000 pieces, and mainly a 64-page catalog, right? Where we were tested against all these other modelers, and we tested against Rich Cortu when we got started. Then we had a proven internal RFM from Dr. Matthew Shaw. Then he also had a model, which he said we did substantially better. There was a UK modeler acquired by McKinsey & Company. That one we only averaged 12% better, but over 3 tests, and it's a 1.5 million piece test, so it's a pretty good test. Guitar Center worked with SPG Systems in 2 tests, and we found out that we outperformed their uniques by 321%. Modern Analytics, we had 3 tests, and we averaged 65% better in the uniques test. So very carefully done over 6 years. This was a letter that I got from Travis Seaton, my friend, who told us about the 321%, and it's in there someplace. It's really hard to read, and I understand that. But that's why I laid it out in the previous slide. So there's something about our methodology that's really solid after you go at that many different companies and that many different modeling teams. We worked with Bullock & Jones for a number of years. They mainly bought our computer system and were doing the modeling themselves. We don't do that so much anymore, mostly because the systems tend to just go static. They don't come up with new variables. They don't cross-pollinate across other clients. And so it doesn't work quite as well, but it still works pretty well. Eric and I met up at a DMA, I think in New York City, and we went to a really fancy restaurant, and I said, well, I should buy you dinner. And Eric said, no, I'm buying. I said, well, wait a minute, I'm the vendor. You shouldn't be buying. And he said, well, first of all, every time we use your model, and we've been testing it for 18 months, every mailing we do, we pull it our old way, and we changed our old way. We've improved it based on what we learned from your system. But he said, every pull, we get 20% more mailable names from your system than we do from our methodology. And he said, that's made us a lot of money. They later sold out to Saks Fifth Avenue. We talked about a uniques test then and how you could compare directly the profitability. And he told me later that the uniques test there was a $1.30 from their client RFMP, and our uniques pulled. Those are the ones they pulled we didn't want, and these are ones that we pulled that they missed. Okay, these are that extra 20%. And they not only did we find a lot of names, but though our uniques generated over $15 per book profitability. So they were very, very profitable down in the mush of the one-to-ones, of the people that only bought once or hadn't spent a lot of money or hadn't bought in a long time. So that was 1,000.89% improvement on that particular test. So that was pretty good. I wanted to bring up Pet Edge because they'd been called New England Serum for literally decades, and New England Serum, they changed their name later, partly because of our work, but we started working with them right around 9/11. Okay, I think it was 2001. And we did a test that fall, and what we found was very upscale buyers, And we thought that was what they were into because they were dog grooming supplies. And so if you think of John Candy's movie Best of Show, you think about um, Fifi the poodle, and they get a $60 or $100 coiffure. I don't know how to say it for sure, but hairdo styling for the family Christmas picture or something, Christmas card picture. And so that's what we found. We found in the fall that it was upscale, very, very upscale, high income, high education, high density, high professional level job profiles, just a lot of that stuff. High school graduation rate. So they said, and it turned out we found tens of thousands of names they shouldn't have been mailing because they were carrying over an RFM from the past. And so we chucked them out and we beat them by tens of thousands of dollars of profitability. I think it was about a 75% win on revenue per piece. And so they decided to give us another try in the spring. And in the spring, when I started working on the models, we saw low income, low education, low density, everything. It was like, what is going on here? I was pretty sure the computers were wrong, but the guys said, no, we can't find anything wrong. It looks like this is really the truth. So I called my friend Johnny, who had a couple of dogs out in the country, and I said, hey, Johnny, do you ever get your dogs groomed? He said, no. And he said, well, what do you mean groomed? And I said, well, like a doggy haircut. Oh, yeah, sure. Right off the bat, I knew there was something up. And I said, well, where do you go? And he said, oh, the pet store or the vet or the boarding kennel, or a lot of specials this time of year. He said the weather's getting a little warmer, the dog's full of burrs. The dog seems to like it. I said, do you care how the dog looks? No. So what we found was that there was a whole other market of pet stores and pet industry that was not about making the dog especially beautiful. It was more about just a haircut in the spring. And we used an assortment. This is actually a message from them. The modeling process not only adds hundreds of geographic variables like income, dwelling value, education, population, density, etc., but also looks at individual items purchased even on that one order. Adding geographic variables provides vision into who's buying what and where, and thus segmenting the 111s. It looked like there was another market, not as committed as the primary one, but of such vast size it literally overshadowed the core that we'd been aiming at. Dozens of new products were introduced. Cover versions were tailored to both the traditional core market as well as the newly identified one. In addition, outbound telemarketing was expanded with some field sales testing. We actually identified some business-to-business components, which we've done many times for consumer products companies. And Glenn Holt writes, Miglosh Marketing has made a major contribution to our growth and profit these few years. Though we talked to many vendors who said they build a marketing database, the insight provided by John and the staff is invaluable. They have shown the difference between what a solid order processing system provides and what a world-class marketing database provides. As a result of the modeling process, we've gained insights into many aspects of our businesses, which has allowed us to sustain rapid growth. This was a company that was not growing. It was just coasting for decades. And we produced about 20% growth the year we started implementing this, and another 20% the next year, and another 20% the next year. And that was in the wake of 9/11. So I wanted you to see that because we're in the wake of something on that scale, if not more so. So what are we offering here? Well, the idea is that we can test AI in 90 days, and we guarantee that we get to the testing in 90 days. So this summer, in August, we offered this. We were just on the verge of signing up a new client to do this, and so we had a uniques test. I'm not going to say how many we mailed. I'm not going to say anything about the overall results. But it was a 90-day launch, so we did 2 months of building the database, getting all the data sorted out, and about another month of doing a model. And it was a combination of catalogs and postcards. And we did a similar uniques test in the spring, spring 2020. I was hoping to have, there's another one in the mail, and we're just loading the test results now. And I really would like to tell you what it did. And it didn't do 1,000%. And it didn't even do 300. But it did really, really, really well. And so we offered them, Dana, if you're watching this, he told me I couldn't offer a 30%, that we'd beat your RFM by 30%. But we beat him so many times. We basically beat the best modelers on earth by, 20, 60, 300%. And this was an RFM. So anyway, we guaranteed 30%. And I can tell you that we far surpassed that. I'll tell you that. It's not talking about the overall mailer or any of that. And, Cabela's, the first time they used our system, they said they made an extra $2.4 million. Baseball Express, we worked with 10 years. They went from $5 to $50 million over the 10 years. Very tiny. The mailings were almost too small to be statistically valid, but we kicked it. Musician's Friend, we had 11 tests. The best one, we won by 321% on huge numbers. Okay, and you can read about these in Spinning Straw into Gold, my book. Oh, I'll pick it up. Sure, I keep it here so you can see it. It's available in paperback and on Kindle for almost nothing. I highly recommend it. Now, how does this work out? People tell me, well, they remember my bathtub model from years and years and years ago. Well, imagine that you've got your customers and you put them all in a bathtub and we shake it so their heads, even out. So here's all of your active customers, mailable customers, we'll call them. And you've got a faucet up here, and the faucet is prospecting. We're going to add new customers into the bathtub, okay? Because you're thinking, well, what good is analyzing my customers? What I want is to get new customers. I need growth. And growth comes from new customers. Growth doesn't come from what I got already. We already got them. Okay, right. There's a point to that. So by opening up this spigot, which is money and intelligence, the more money you spend, the more people go down into the bathtub, right? So let's just look at the bathtub filling up. Okay? Bathtub's filling up, but at the same time, that bathtub is draining out. Because that's what happens. And unlike a bathtub where you just have one drain, you got many little holes and cracks in this bathtub. And you don't even know where they are. And your customers, unless you're selling term life insurance, because I thought this up after Martin Baer explained to me why he created lifetime value. The trouble with lifetime value when you apply it to an e-commerce or catalog business is the customers don't tell you when they go away. So I was in an affiliate relationship with another menswear company, so I quit buying from Land's End for 10 years. I'm back. It's my Land's End. Love Land's End turtlenecks. They're the best. I tried Eddie Bauer. I tried Blair. I tried a bunch of them. No, this is the best. Land's End's the best. Super T, that's the best. Anyway, so for 10 years I was gone. I was dormant. They would have thought I went down the drain, but I didn't. I remembered Land's End. I started in the 70s buying Land's End. They were a sailing company back then, and I was a sailor. And so, anyway, they're draining out. And people will tell you, well, we'll track all of that. But you can't track it because they won't tell you, and you don't know, and they don't know. I was gone for 10 years. I didn't know if I'd ever come back. But you know what? When I logged onto the website, my username and password were still good. They hadn't deleted me. Good for them, right? So anyway, people are flowing in, people are flowing out. John Worth actually gave me this. And you don't know where they're going, so that when you start adding, you don't know who's staying and who isn't. And it's really hard to tell the value of them, right? And they're going down the drain. And here's the way this works. With modeling, we can know better the ones that are leaving in a flow model. We can dynamically model, then this is not statistical variables. This is just flows in and out. We can go back and figure out your last 5 years and how you got there and how much prospecting you did and how much retention you did. And we can figure out who are the good ones and who are the ones staying. And that's the kind of things that we do with customers because we know something about the customers. The prospects are coming in raw. We might know where they came from. We might not even know that. Okay? And so those come flowing in. We don't know what they are, but the longer they stay and the more they do, the more we know. And it's that intelligence that makes this work. Money times intelligence. That's what happened with Lovesac. We taught them the power of direct marketing with mail that they then applied to their TV, their web, and all their other aspects of their business, and off they went. Okay? And that's why it all makes sense. And I got to get past. I didn't know how many of these slides I had. So you get better customer selection. We find more promotable customers. We, like in Bullock & Jones. We improve the promotional ROI, profitability of your mailings, like in Pet Edge, Cabela's, Baseball Express. So we get greater customer value. Now that's interesting. That's another aspect, is that as a customer comes in, a new customer we don't know much about, but we can identify characteristics of that new customer once they're in, and we can figure out what we should be spending on that one. We can better tune our retention spending to the expected value of that customer, and all driven by hard results. The more they're worth, the more that bathtub gets worth, the more each individual in that bathtub gets worth, the more we can afford. So we multiply the money, the more we can afford for acquisition. So there's two ways that this process maximizes growth. One is we know more about it. We get more intelligence. We have a process that generates intelligence. The other is, as we generate better ROI, as we win those tests, the valuation of your business changes and your worth per customer goes up, which means your justification for acquisition goes up. So it leverages both the money and the intelligence. So how do we start? Well, first of all, we have a really clear ROI win. We spec a number. Okay? We have a simple labeled data set. If you're a mailer, we have it already. You may not know it, but you'd have it. Okay? If you're not a mailer, we can work with you on that. Okay? You need to be a mailer. If you want to survive chaotic times, you need to be in the mail, because the mail is the most stable foundation for knowledge that there is. Okay? We do 90 days to get in the mail. We guarantee a 20% win, or we walk away. So you got to pay us for those 3 months. That's the way it is. But after that, if we don't win by at least 20% over what you're doing, that's it. No more liability, no more nothing. Okay? We have a 20-year proven process of machine learning. We take the sales, promotion, labeled data set. We take who got mailed, and we apply the automatic interaction detector. Okay, we got a labeled data set. We apply old school chi-squared interaction detector. We've got this human who looks at it and says, that doesn't make any sense. Throws a lot of stuff out because there's a lot of spurious correlations. And if you're comparing what we do with back testing, you'll find that it's about the same. The trouble is they don't have this human throwing out stuff. And that makes all the difference in the real world. We also have automated validation. So we test the human guy against another data set. And that other data set says, well, you picked that variable, but it didn't work out over there. And that doesn't mean it's perfect, but it does put another check on the modeling process. We validate about 20 validations per model. So we spend a lot of time getting these variables at least working in two historical contexts in the sales and promotion label data set that we're working on. Okay? One of our clients asked one of those modelers I just mentioned if they did any validation of their model, and they were told, no, that you have to pay extra for that. No, it's baked into our process because we wouldn't do it without it. Man, it is a lifesaver. It really, really improves the quality of what we're putting out there. And it changes from just a back test to something that actually is tested in the real world, but not mailed yet. But that's the last piece, real world validation. We go back after the mailing results come in of that model and match it all to each individual cell and look at the profitability. Baseball Express used to take all of our models and key them in as their list expected results and then compare. And the accounting department would look it over, and we had the best projections that you could ever imagine, because they were careful about what the values were that were put in and how they looked at it. Just a word about our process in terms of the process itself. Okay, RFM is 3 variables: recency, frequency, monetary. That's all it is. It's 3, and it masks the best names and it masks the worst, depending on how you do the scoring. Okay, regression, you might have 100 variables, but the modeler takes a lot of hands-on. It's good. You'll understand it at the end. The modeler takes hands-on and removes the collinear variables. It removes the ones that are basically saying the same thing and tries to find the best variable and the next best variable. The trouble is that independent variables are not independent. They're all connected. They're all interacting, and they're correlated, and so it's not a very it's very easy to understand, but it's not the real world, and we all know it. Okay, then we can jump to AI, neural net, and it could be 1,000 variables, it could be 2,000, 3,000. Now the problem is, as someone who makes variables and invents them, there's a diminishing return. The first 3 are really good. Recency and frequency are actually really good, and monetary is not always that good. We've had many clients where somebody places a big order and they go dormant for a while. Okay, so even there, R is the best, F is the next best, and M is the last one. There's even a diminishing returns in 3 little variables, so it goes down. So moving from 500 as our capacity to 2,000, 5,000 really won't tell you a lot more. Just can tell you that it won't. It doesn't even, going from 100 to 500 doesn't tell you a lot more, unless you're really creative about it. So anyway, this is where we live. But the advantage of where we live is that it's all transparent. Every one of those variables is understandable. I sat down with Dick Cabela, and his staff said, don't try that. Dick hates computers, and he is not interested in statistics. And I said, hey, Dick, if you had one catalog left, you had one fishing catalog, would you want to mail it to the guy? And let's say they're both about the same. They haven't bought in a couple of years, and one guy bought twice, but real little orders, and one guy bought once, but a pretty good size order. But one guy lives in a blue-collar neighborhood, and one guy lives upscale, Manhattan. Which one would you send your last catalog to, just as you understand it? And he said, well, I would definitely send it to the guy in the blue-collar neighborhood. And I said, you know what, Dick? That's what the model shows. And he said, you know what, John? That's what fishermen are like. And I showed him step by step by step by step. And he said, you know what? This is right. That's what fishermen are like. But sometimes we uncover something surprising. And that's why we have longer-term contracts, because that pet edge thing, that story, was a surprise. And we've had a lot of surprises. A lot of times the model comes up with stuff that I did not expect. And that's where the real growth happens. Well-worth variable. This is a great example. Travis Seaton goaded me into that. I mentioned Travis earlier on that letter. It's hard to build. The moon moves around a lot more than I ever dreamed. But we built it for Musician's Friend, and we took about we said, okay, let's take 2 days on either side of the full moon, 48 hours, which would be about a 15th of the month. And it turned out that we had, about half the customers. The sales were about the same, but because of that, it meant that these customers at the full moon were worth twice what the rest of the customers were worth. And that you can leverage. Today, you can leverage that in digital a big time. You could find customers that are worth mailing, just not mailing, but email, digital, banner ads on their cell phone. We can do all of that stuff. Okay, so we take 3 months, 2 months to build a database, 1 month to build the predictive model. We set up a head-to-head uniques test. We guarantee that we're going to know at the end how it did. We recommend you have at least 100,000 active customers. We use mail for maximum engagement. Takes a couple of months for the results to come in. Sorry, but that's the way it works. And if we can't do better than the current selection, we walk away. But if we win, we got a 3-year contract. And the reason is, as you saw with Musician Friend, you didn't see, but Baseball Express, a number of other clients, the big gains come in year 2 and 3. Pet Edge was another one. Absolutely. So the takeaways, would you be interested in 20% growth? Would you like to prove which part of your marketing is most effective? That was what Sean said. That we were proving what really worked and what didn't. Would you like to know what offers ignite your customers? Would you like an old direct marketer to help you verify offer testing? Right? Oh, hi. Hi, Phoenix. I see you out there. I'm over on YouTube mostly. Anyway, big takeaways. If you're a CEO, you want to think about this. You want to make some decisions because I think it's going to turn around. I think we're right at the cusp. I went and bought stock. It's going to be a while. It's going to be a struggle. But there's opportunities in your customer file, in your database. There are opportunities if you only saw them, but you've been masking them because either you're not modeling or you're modeling poorly. Even with AI, you can be modeling poorly. That's the funny part. AI masks things. So that's the story. Max ROI in 90 days. I think you're going to want to get involved with this. I want to thank you for taking time to watch. Give me a call. No obligation to that. Give me a call. See if it applies to your company. Today's the day. You could have been at Nemoa. They canceled. But things are going to come roaring back. I am convinced that things are going to be even stronger. I know that's crazy. I told somebody 3 days ago that was going to happen, and oh wow! Since then we have a treatment. Might even be a cure. Oh my gosh! Do you understand what that does to the exponential curve? If you can chop the top of it off, we're ready to go. You want to capitalize on it or not? It's time to make a decision. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA, the International Society for Strategic Marketing. If you're new to this channel, hit subscribe, hit the little bell. I do a live stream every day. You'll keep up with the best good news that's coming down the pipe in marketing. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.